Recording in progress.
Everybody set? Good evening. Welcome to the May 27th, 2025 council meeting for the town of Superior. We're in session. Let's all please rise for this Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lydia, good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent. May we please have the roll call?
Yes. Mayor Mark Lasis. Mayor Pro Tem Jason Serbu.
Here.
Councilmember Jen Cowish.
Here.
Councilmember Stephanie Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Neil Shaw.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Foster.
Here.
Councilmember Heather Craycraft.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Nicholas Hartman.
Here.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. And to those of you on Zoom, thanks for checking in. Next up is the approval of agenda minutes. We have two proclamations, one declaring June Pride Month and the other for Gun Violence Awareness Day. Does anybody want to pull anything from the agenda?
If I could pull 5G for a quick comment.
All right, noted. Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the rest?
Motion?
Yep.
I make a motion to
Okay,
approve.
second. Okay, we have a motion from Council Member Miller, a second from, I think it was Ms. Heather Craycraft, Councilmember Craycraft. Those in favor? All unanimous? Fantastic. Moving on, next up is public comments on the consent agenda presentations and non-agenda items. If you're making public comment, please state your name, the city you live in, limited to 5 minutes per person. If you're on Zoom, we'll get to you after public comment in the room. If you do want to speak regarding the public hearing later on, you may make your comments now. However, it might be more apropos to wait until the time of the public hearing. That way it'll be right next to the meeting. So is there anyone in the room who would like to have public comment?
We're spending money, so we have to do a roll call on the consent agenda.
Okay, let's back that up then. Okay, roll call please, Lydia.
For the agenda item,
Consent agenda.
Consent
for the
agenda.
consent agenda.
Just for the agenda setting.
They're, sorry. They're
My
not
bad.
approving.
My bad.
Yeah, we're not approving the agenda
I'm
items.
being too critical, Mayor Pro Tem.
We're okay? You guys said you were going to mess with me. Okay.
So we're spending money, so I'll do a roll call.
Okay.
What are you talking?
Mayor Pro Tem Serbu.
Yes.
Councilmember Cowish.
Yes.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw.
Yes.
Councilmember Foster.
Yes.
Councilmember Craycraft.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public comment. Nick, is there anyone signed in for public comment? No. Emily, is there anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, so we close public comment. That was pretty quick. And now it's time for board reports. Who'd like to go first?
I'm happy to. I have no report.
This will be quick. I just want to, we celebrated Memorial Day yesterday, and I just want to acknowledge and appreciate all of our men and women that have served in our armed forces throughout the history of our country, and many of whom have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. So I just want to say thank you for your service to all the active duty service folks still serving today. I really appreciate all that you're doing to help protect freedom and the United States of America. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll go. I will definitely echo Councilmember Foster's comments. Thank you so much to all of our service members and for everything that you do, and all of our past service members. Extremely important. And like Mike said, it's, ultimate sacrifice. So thank you. Just a couple quick things. First, I didn't want to pull it from the agenda, but do want to make a quick comment from our Finance Committee meeting. And I mentioned it during the Finance meeting, but Just want to bring everyone's attention to the Q1 financials for the total water fund revenues. They are down 21.8% from 2024. They're at budgeted levels, but they are down despite the fact that water usage is higher this year. So just something to be cognizant of, and I've mentioned it before, but we do need to be aware of the water rates because we don't want a massive jump like we've seen in some municipalities. And as our revenues continue to decline because of the system development fees going away, once we're fully built out, we need to have probably a plan in place. So just want to get that on everybody's radar. Just a couple events. The Civic Space opening will be June 18th, which coincides with our farmers market or kind of festival. So please make sure everybody marks their calendar for that. And then finally, the Block Party trailer is gaining some traction, and we're filling up on reservations for that. So if you're not aware of that, you can rent the Block Party trailer to basically have everything you need to have a block party on your block and celebrate with your neighbors. So if you're interested in that, please contact the town and we can get you signed up. That's it for me.
Thank you, Stephanie. Jen? Okay, Neil?
Get some technical difficulties over here. All right, just quickly, I was able to actually tour the Civic Space last week with CAPS, which was great. Actually anxious to see it become sort of an integral part of the sort of shared space within the community. And just last week was also a Dr. Cog meeting, and one of the folks there at Dr. Cog, she used to live here in Superior. She's from Erie. She mentioned the fact that when she was living here, there was really no space to gather. And we have the community center now. We have the Civic Space coming up soon, so it's a fundamental change for the town of Superior. Anyways, Dr. Cog, one of the things that was discussed at Dr. Cog was the adoption of the Building Policy Collaborative. So as a reminder, Dr. Cog received over $200 million under the Inflation Reduction Act, administering a decarbonization program. It's one of the biggest grants that was handed out through the EPA. So the first piece of this is $35 million, and Superior will be eligible for $200,000 of that, which is based on a combination of our population and the number of people who actually have jobs here in Superior. I'll send around the details to the council and ACES so everybody has it. There's a likelihood that not all communities will use all their money, so there could be second and additional rounds. But the whole point here is with that 200 grand is that we can partner with our businesses to help them basically decarbonize, electrify, and a number of different things. So huge opportunity there for our businesses. And the other thing is Bike to Work Day is June 25th. It is one of the largest Bike to Work days in the country. It's actually number 2 next to San Francisco, but San Francisco has an unfair advantage with the weather. Nonetheless, our winter Bike to Work Day is pretty big too. So as usual, Town Superior is going to have a station set up, but I encourage everybody to ride their bikes to work. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Neil. Jen?
Yeah, thanks. So a couple things I just want to note. We've had ongoing protests at Tesla on Saturdays, and I just want to remind people to pay attention out there when the roads are busy. Several folks I know have had little accidents because they're just people looking at the protest and being involved from their vehicles, which is, I think, the unintended consequences that there's little fender benders and things. So just reminding people that get out there and do your protest, but pay attention and just be safe when there's so many people moving around in a space where there's so many things going on. I want to say thanks to, we had our veterans meeting, which is typically on Sundays at the community center on the last Sunday of the month, but we had it yesterday at Pat's Tap, he's a former Marine, but to honor Memorial Day, and we had several folks show up that aren't usually at the meeting, so it's starting to gain a little more traction. We've got more people coming, so just thank you for coming out and sharing your stories and just communing on a day that is heavy, I think, for people who have served. And I just appreciate so many people here in this community. And I did the Boulder, which is, very much around the Memorial Day honoring of the fallen. And everybody really kept it in a space of remembering that military people swear an oath to the Constitution and not a president. And I so much appreciate that theme staying at top of mind for people in this. And I don't have prepared comments for this next part, but I want to acknowledge, I know that I am, it's May, it's almost the end of May, so 5 months into this new year, the new administration, and I have conversations with people in the community that are just exhausted, and they're They don't know what to do. They don't know how to react to things. And every day is a new, surprise. And I just want to remind people that staying in a state of hypervigilant is exhausting. And so it's normal that you're exhausted. And this is a lot. And we weren't built for this. So I just reminder to people to take care of themselves and take a break. It's all going to happen whether you're doom scrolling or not. So just, if you can find those breaks, it's rained so much and we have this like beautiful natural like explosion of flowers and greenery and everything. So like go outside, take a break, put your phone down. But you can't sustain this for this much time. And so I just want to remind people it's okay to stop for a minute and take a break. So that's it.
Great, thank you, Jen. Grasswood Park is almost open. The pedestrian bridge is fantastic. I've talked to a lot of residents who are using it right now with their children. It is a great shortcut for them to get to Children's Park in a safe manner. They don't have to go across 2nd anymore. I did speak with Brandon and I told him he and his crew at Public Works deserves a large deal of credit for that. He says no credit is needed, but I'm going to thank you anyway. Thank you to you and the Public Works staff. It is a fantastic addition to our town. The path going by the buildings really enhances the historical significance of the buildings, which makes it a lot more impressive. And just well done, you and your staff. So thank you very much. Please extend that to everyone in Public Works. Studio Pilates is opening on Main Street on Thursday at 5 o'clock. Sarah Umbach is the owner. And if you looked on Facebook, Mark has done a session there. I don't know if it was a photo op or he actually did a session. I know Pilates is rigorous and Mark could definitely handle it. So please join the chamber at 5 o'clock as well as myself and other council members to welcome Sarah to the community. I think it's going to be a fantastic addition to downtown and I'm very, very excited. This past weekend, I was in Las Vegas for the International Council on Shopping Centers and I had some excellent conversations with Brixmore, the developer who does the Superior Marketplace, as well as Carmel, who's responsible for the build out of the downtown on Main Street. I think there's a lot of possibilities going forward. I think we're going to start getting some really good traction, and I am very, very optimistic about our future. And we also had, Matt and I also had some very good conversations with some hotel chains, Marriott and IHG and another. And I think our pads that we're looking at right now, we might be able to get those filled up, hopefully in time for the Sundance Film Festival, which would be amazing, so we can get some traction on that. So that went very, very well. And last but not least, Sunday morning, I had a frantic phone call. It was actually Monday morning, I had a frantic call from a Superior resident whose daughter was going to be presenting a paper. She's a PhD candidate at the University of Wisconsin and I know I'm going to screw this up, in plant pathology and genomics, so she is a much more intelligent person than I am. And she was having to fly to Greece and she had an issue with her passport. The plane was the next day. I contacted Joe Nagoose and Joe Nagoose's staff actually got in touch. Erica, a staff member, got them set up. This morning, she was able to go to Chicago from Wisconsin, get her new passport, get to the plane 10 minutes before the door closed. She's on her way to Greece, and she's going to be doing her presentation on Thursday. So just a huge thank you to Joe Nagoose and his staff. You've really been there for our community at every step of the way, every single thing, and this is just one more thing that just makes me very, very thankful that you are a representative in the House. And that's all I have. Lydia?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Matt Magley?
Hi, everybody from Phoenix. It's just under 100 degrees here, so it's a little culture shock.
From Vegas to there.
Yeah, right. Jason mentioned ICSC. Just one follow-up there. We'll have a summary out for the council as soon as it's ready. Should be a couple weeks before we have that to you, but we had some good meetings. That's all I have.
Council, or Nick?
Nothing.
Excellent. That closes our council reports. Next up is the presentation on the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and Auditor's Management Report. You have the floor. Welcome.
Well, good evening, Town Council, and by way of introduction, Paul Niedermuller, Principal with Clifton Larson Allen, your external auditing firm. So my points are going to be fairly brief tonight, but really my intent is to answer any questions you have. As your external auditor, I will remind the council we did meet with your finance committee early last week and went over in greater detail the results of the annual comprehensive financial report. Just a couple of things that we wanted to highlight, which are within your packet. You have the ACFR as well as other governance communications. We did not have any disagreements. We did not have any adjustments or past adjustments. Those are all really good news in terms of being your external auditor. The information was presented was materially correct and is presented within the financial statement report. On page 9, we issue our opinion, which is an unmodified opinion in all material respects. So that is a clean opinion, meaning we stand behind the numbers in all material respects. Another component of this audit was a single audit, and this results in if you could receive more than $750,000 of federal monies, you're required to undergo a more comprehensive review of those grants. The grant that was subject to review this year was ARPA, so some of the coronavirus relief funds that came out back in 2021. So those were deferred until spending in 2024. So we did review that program, and we did not have any findings or recommendations, which again is a very stellar job by management as well as your guidance as town council. So at this point, I would be happy to address any questions that council may have or any other comments that you have as your external auditor.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Yep.
Got a couple. Thanks. Good to see you again, Paul. I didn't watch the Finance Committee meeting, so I apologize if some of these questions are repetitive to those. But as you and I did talk earlier this year about controls and the failure of some of the controls last year, I'd like to hear kind of what you think about some of your assessment of the controls environment, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong.
Sure. Yeah, we did have a control deficiency, and that's highlighted within your packet. I think a lot of the controls that the council used, and we talked about this in the Finance Committee, were more detective controls rather than preventative controls. And I think one of the items that we talked about, when we think about that, detective is after the fact. Preventative would prevent it from being happening. And so if I had a bunch of gold in the middle of the floor, we can look at it every day and say, yeah, it's still there. But that's not a really good control if you have something like that. But in your case, the segregation of duties in some of the various departments, and this has to do with purchasing, it would require a more robust and preventative, meaning you would have to have a purchasing department or set up PO systems in order to get that to a preventative-based control. And so we did talk to the Finance Committee about our recommendation and what that, kind of evaluating the cost benefit associated with establishing a more preventative-based control. But, we did note there were some breakdowns because it's manual interpretation. If the spending threshold goes over a certain amount within a period, it has to be tracked manually. And so that's something that there is risk, and you just have to see, in terms of that risk, what kind of dollars you want to spend to mitigate some of that risk.
Okay. And then just sort of normal course question I ask you every year, any disagreements with management or challenges in obtaining the audit materials?
No.
Okay.
In fact, as we talked to the Finance Committee, it was in fact the opposite. Everything we asked for, we received in a timely manner, and we're able to issue our report timely, as we mentioned, night on May 2nd, after closing the books there in March. So I think it's a timely and all the information was provided as requested.
Neil, I'll just add to your comment there. Given Paul's workload, I think the town had a really significant incentive to get that information in as quickly as possible. So they stayed at the top of Paul's workload and not at the bottom. So yeah, I want to just appreciate and acknowledge Jeff for all his work and his team for getting Paul all the information he needed.
Thank you.
Just the last question, kind of as it relates to internal controls, and we think about this being a single audit and then the subsequent FEMA monies. Are we setting, or do we have a weakness potentially as it relates to the FEMA funding and how we control for that?
And just to understand a little bit better, when you say weakness in the FEMA fund.
So yeah, I mean, we had a controls deficiency this past year,
yes.
Right? And we have, like you said, sort of segregation of duties, we don't have a very big staff, right? It's a sort of double-edged sword for Sarbanes-Oxley and small companies, municipalities and whatever. Sarbanes-Oxley works great if you're 1,000 people. It doesn't work good if you're 70 or 10 or 20. As we think about FEMA funding and how we're going to account for those, do we have a potential risk when it comes to an audit for them because of the way that FEMA may approach, not FEMA, but the government may approach reimbursements relative to small, tiny staff?
Sure. It'd be hard as any kind of future statement would be hard to rectify, but
of course,
I think the fact that you invested in a grants team at the onset of the FEMA is strengthens your internal control. The other thing is the oversight at the state level and some of the rigorous improvement or approvals that go in place helps smaller municipalities kind of guide through some of the federal requirements.
Okay.
Again, we looked at FEMA 2 of the last 3 years, and I think it's a testament to the controls in place that we did not have any findings that rose to the level of reportable conditions.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Paul.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to point out, I know it's not a competition, but I believe we were the first ones to submit everything for the audit to be completed.
You're our first municipality.
There you go. Thanks. I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
I think it's worth noting that Boulder doesn't get theirs out till sometime in August. So, I think it says a lot.
Great. Any other questions? Great, Paul, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the dialogue and support. Thank you.
Next up is the project update on the Rock Creek Parkway, Coal Creek Drive roadway improvements. Take it away, Brandon.
Good evening, Town Council. We're getting so fast. I'm gonna go through all 51 sheets of this project. I am joking. And bear with me, I actually love Google Earth, so I am gonna pull that up too. If you haven't noticed, Google Earth has actually been updated in Superior as of April 25th, so, yep.
So Coal Creek Crossing is no longer dirt?
Coal Creek, well, that's still Google imagery.
Oh, that's
It is dirt there.
Yeah.
But not in Google Earth.
Yep, still dirt.
There it is. So this is April 26th, so we actually had the underpass exposed. And you can see our fancy landscaping on Rock Creek. But that's why I was pulling it up. I want to show you this. So this is the landscaping we did when we removed the, sorry, let me back up. So we are giving an update today on the Rock Creek Parkway project from Indiana to 88th Street. So we're not asking for any action tonight. We do have the design at roughly 90%. Staff still has some comments on the design plans that was sent out as part of your packet. I got a meeting with the engineer tomorrow. Our goal is to bid this, actually get it on the street later this week and bring it to council, probably likely at a special meeting in late June, early July, since we have a gap between the 23rd and July 14th, just to keep us on schedule. So that's kind of a snippet for where we're going. While I got Google Earth up, I did want to show you this. So this is where we moved the right turn lane. That wasn't a right turn lane. It was really an additional lane. This is the right turn lane we removed at Pickett, and then we kept that right turn lane removal all the way up past Wiggins. Sorry, I keep calling it a right turn lane. It was really a third lane in this section. But this is the same type of landscaping we're proposing when we remove the turn lanes on Rock Creek Parkway as the next phase. So I just want to show you that from an aerial perspective because you can see it a lot better than you can from the plans, what it would look like. But we're going to match this. We are not doing any median work as part of the Rock Creek project from Indiana to 88th. Leslie and I have been discussing median improvements. That's our goal. We are going after some grants to reduce that to xeriscaping. That grant program is under scrutiny now from this current administration, so we don't know how fruitful it will be, but that's part of the reason we put it as part of this project, and it'll be its own standalone project. And also what we found out is landscapers are not roadway contractors. They're two completely different entities, so separating them kind of makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to take you through a couple pages. I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the pages of the plans, but didn't want to take too much of your time. So starting on sheet 19, so just want to show you, so what the engineer is proposing based on the review of the roadway, and we actually did some geotech in the roadway as well. We're still waiting on that final report from the geotech, which I hope to have tomorrow, but we have got the preliminary report. They are proposing mill and overlay generally for Rock Creek Parkway from Indiana all the way to 88th Street. I want to show you this section because we are removing that right turn lane for Rock Creek Parkway headed westbound here in Indiana. We are keeping the right turn lane into the school, but we are removing the right turn lane on the Indiana, or on the Rock Creek section to enter Indiana headed northbound on Indiana. And that'll be the same landscaping that we had in the, I just showed you in the aerial, where we removed the right turn lane previously. And stop me if you have questions.
Yeah, Brandon, just as part of this, one of the comments we got from ACES, and we think about, the part that we did from McCaslin down to Indiana and the sort of the detached lawn. This is it's kind of roadway, but it's also, since Leslie's in the room, it's also xeriscaping. We got little chunks of detached grass between the roadway and then the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about taking care of any of that? Okay.
No, we're not. So there will be a section of it that gets removed here.
Right by the turn lane, sure.
And we already have some xeriscaping in that section between the sidewalk and the curb. We talked about taking out this little section to here, in the grass between the curb and the sidewalk. Leslie and I were talking about that as we reviewed the plans. My recommendation is to not do it as part of this project. So the main reason is all this irrigation is tied together, so we'd have to rerun the irrigation that serves this area. So there would be some costs for that, and you're really not gaining much turf removal. Yeah. It's just this little pocket, probably 80 feet by 5 feet. So it's really not that much in the scheme of things. And we talked about putting this alternate bid, but my thought is it's just a lot of work and cost for very little impact in the scheme of things when you look at the corridor. I think our goal ultimately is to get rid of that grass between the sidewalk and the roadway, and talking to Leslie, because it is a maintenance challenge for that team. It's just harder to maintain that 5-foot strip.
And plus all the overspray negatively affects the roads.
Yes.
Hey, Brandon.
Thanks.
While we've got this up, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it or not, but because we're looking at it, can we make sure that when we do the restriping that it's not this situation at the intersection where it's like confusing and total chaos? I understand why the green and the white are where they are, because one coincides with the sidewalk and another coincides with the bike lane, but it's just very confusing. If I know in other places I've seen, both in the US and abroad, you see, the white and then it's like outlined with the green. So it's just a little bit cleaner, and it kind of indicates that both can use that crossing. If we could maybe do something similar.
Yeah, so what we propose is actually, sorry, wrong attachment. So what we propose, this is the striping plan. So we're not proposing any green bike lane striping. We actually didn't include continuing the white striping through the intersection. Typically there is a gap when you see a bike lane in an intersection. The MUTCD is not real clear, so you could continue that white striping to show the lane. So if there's thoughts from the council on that, we could add that. But the plan right now is to not put in any green bike lane striping or the cross striping, just to keep it less busy.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, go back. And again, stop me with any questions. Yes, so sheet 20 was where I want to start next. So this is the schematic of the roundabout that would be at Rock Creek and Coal Creek Drive. And I'll show the striping imagery for this in just a minute, but this kind of shows the concrete work that'll be proposed. So you see this dark gray, so it will be, while we are doing a mill and overlay in general, we will be doing a full depth repair here. We got to do so much concrete work and meeting work that it just makes sense to rip out all the asphalt in this section. But that's why you see the dark gray at this specific intersection. And then you see the mill and overlay on each side, both east and west, heading up to it. And I'll get more in detail in the striping plan as to the bike and pedestrian movements, but you can see the flat work that's proposed. So really the goal in a roundabout is to force cars kind of toward the center, make them have to slow down, give them good sight lines to look left, but then to make that turn right, but really to slow traffic down. So we kind of make these very exaggerated, so cars do go slow through them. So that's the intent. If we use this far outer lane, it would kind of be a straight path, and we would see increased speeds through the roundabout, which that wasn't the goal of this project when we met previously.
Brandon, before you leave, so I think the direction from the board was the roundabout, but then we also were thinking the cost optimized version, which basically did away with a lot of the concrete and was paint. But it looks like you have concrete in here?
No, so this is still a valued engineer. So the bigger version actually had a much larger median.
Okay, so it's just
taken out.
shorter concrete. Okay, I got
Yeah,
it.
we did go with the value engineered approach. And we have the engineer's opinion probable cost that was attached. I'll pull that up on the screen. I'm going to go through all 48 line items, but you can kind of see where they think we're going to be at budget-wise. But this is the valued engineer approach. These concrete islands are 2-inch curbs, so they can drive over them with not much discomfort. Normal cars won't do it because it is uncomfortable to hit a 2 or 3 inch bump, especially at 25 miles per hour. But if we have an emergency, it is designed to allow two-way traffic through it. It would require likely police presence, but it is designed to do that. I did also want to show, we had an option here, so the sidewalk jumps back out.
Brandon, real quickly.
Yeah.
Before we leave your comment about police presence, have you been in coordination with Sergeant Solomon on this roundabout and having a police presence if there is a need for emergency evacuation?
We have talked about it. We haven't talked about it really in detail what that would look like, but it's been more ancillary. And I know we did hear from Mountain View Fire during our last public meeting. I think it was a council meeting where they shared their appreciation, but no, that's something we can do. We could talk to them about how that would work logistically.
I just want to make sure we are talking with them because I think in that presentation, Sergeant, I think it was the chief actually had mentioned that they already have sort of predetermined locations where they're going to have police or deputy presence to help with evacuation. So I just want to make sure that they're aware of this.
That's a good point. Thanks, Mike.
Great, thank you.
And Brandon, just really quickly on the turning circle, it looks like it's much tighter as far as the angles coming off it or the degrees of that. Is it in fact a tighter turning than what we have at McCaslin in Maine right now?
So it's kind of hard to compare that one because it's a 2-lane roundabout. Mm-hmm. When you compare it to probably Coal Creek Drive Colton Road would probably be the best comparison. It is pretty tight compared to that, but you can see in this one, I mean, in McCaslin, we're kind of pointing them in the direction they're going, which does increase speeds. Now the general thought is to not kind of give them that extra curve heading into it because it increases speeds. So current design standards call for a more abrupt turn when you enter the roundabout. So that's the biggest difference, I would say, between this roundabout and what we're proposing at Rock Creek and Coal Creek Drive.
Okay, good. Now, I really like what you're proposing right now because it seems like the European model is much tighter. You actually come into, it's more like a 90-degree, but you do have the turn into it, and it slows you down considerably. The one in McCaslin, you can pretty much roll through there at 45, 50 if you wanted to without too much of a problem. So I really do like what you guys have done on this. This sometimes over here, man, and you've been on your bike right now, it's not fun. So this looks like it's really going to slow things down. So I definitely like the direction you're taking this in.
Thanks. Another thing we decided to do, so the initial design, when we got 60% plans, actually the curb line you can barely see. The existing curb line is right where that cursor is. But that curb line continues down here. So we talked about this being a really wide bike lane, but it's really just wasted asphalt. So we're actually going to kind of take away some asphalt here between the curb and the sidewalk and do that same landscape design that I showed you in the South Picken and the Indiana right turn lane section there.
Brandon, same, with the sort of diagonal corner, is it the same thing in terms of the turning right off of, like right there, in terms of that right turn lane? Because it doesn't look like as much asphalt's getting taken away there.
It's kind of hard, oh crap, hit the wrong button. It's kind of hard to see the existing curb line is roughly right here. So we are widening the intersection mainly on this curve here.
Okay.
So you can see the existing curb line. The main two widening is here on I guess that's the northwest side and the southeast side. There's a little bit of widening on both the northeast and southwest, but it's much smaller than these two. So we are taking some additional intersections getting larger. We have plenty of land there from a town perspective to do that, but we are taking some of that. And this will be kind of a concrete section here too. It's really too small to do the zero escape design we were doing at the right turn lane.
Yeah, I grabbed my pointer, so this will make more sense.
Okay.
I'm thinking about like this gap here looks much, much larger than kind of what you see in the bike lanes around here. I wasn't quite sure what the intent was with this golf cart parking spot.
Are we getting golf carts?
So that's a good question. Let me jump to another view.
Oh, never mind. Okay, that was just a drawing. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's still wider than it is here, so we could do something similar. I mean, if we wanted to, we could take some, it'd be smaller than this section here, but we could take away this asphalt here between the existing curb and the bike lane. So that is something we could look at. I don't really see any drawbacks to it. That's something we could look at if, get a cost on.
Yeah, it was more about making it symmetric with the other three corners so that, sort of the approach is similar, especially if you're going up the hill on Rock Creek Parkway. Coming up here, you've got the same sort of, view as a biker in both directions.
Yeah, we can look at that. Kind of making this zero scaped between where the bike lane went in and where that curb is and taking that out.
Yeah, like what we're doing up here.
Sorry, I might know why we didn't do that.
Okay.
There could be a catch basin there.
I think there is actually.
Anyway, we'll take a look at it, but if there's
Yeah.
existing catch basin.
There's a
here-
drain,
Yeah, there's
right?
one right there.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't take that one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it gets a lot more expensive when we have to start moving that storm drainage.
Sure. Gotcha.
We are having to move it on the northwest. It's like a geography class. On the northwest corner here, we are having to move it, but that was due to the road widening. But that's why we didn't move this one.
Okay.
That was a good question. So this was actually the next sheet I was going to show. So it kind of shows the striping, and don't get too lost in all these call outs. They're different things, but it kind of shows you what the striping would look like, what the pedestrian movement would look like. Obviously, they're crossing one lane of traffic each direction instead of 2 to 3 lanes, depending on the scenario. And I mean, the biggest gap is, I think, 13 feet for the pedestrian to cross. So you got a good movement. The bike lanes, as you can see, it's kind of unique, different than any roundabout we have in town. They kind of flow through the roundabout, albeit not in the roadway itself, which I think is much preferred. Ideally, in roundabouts, their bikes are supposed to exit the roundabout. I would say 90% of the time, bikes stay in the roundabout, especially for comfortable, confident bikers. I would exit the roundabout personally, but I'm not a confident biker. But
comfort.
as we can see here, the bikes are off the roundabout. This is going eastbound. They would flow kind of around the roundabout and then get back into the travel lane. And same thing for westbound bike traffic. They kind of flow around the outside of the roundabout, whereas conventionally you would see them exit onto the sidewalk, go up here to the pedestrian crossing, cross, come down, and then re-enter the roadway. So I think bikes will prefer this design. When they do cross the road, we are trying to force the bikes to cross where the pedestrians cross, so that centralizes those movements, and they'll kind of have their own lane to cross without as many ramps and bumps, so it makes it smoother for a bike to stay on the bike versus pedestrians. So we have that for both the crossings of Rock Creek Parkway.
Brandon, as a biker, I think this is amazing because the get out of the traffic circle, go on the sidewalk. You might make it safer for I guess the cars, but what always created an issue is if there's pedestrians on those sidewalks. And now there's bikers coming in at 20 miles an hour and trying to scramble around people who are out there with a stroller. So this keeps all three modes, walking, biking, and cars totally separated, which is fantastic. And if anybody's going north-south on Coal Creek that doesn't want to go all the way over, they're free to ride their bike in the intersection as it would be today. Because I think that was one of the comments we had in public comment during the day that we had this conversation about, where do the bikers have to go? They're always welcome to treat themselves as a vehicle. And it'd be no different than approaching the intersection today.
Yeah.
I think the concepts that you showed us earlier, because I haven't seen this anywhere, it's hard to visualize, but I think these schematics are fantastic in terms of how it should work.
Good. Two more things I was going to point out on this sheet. So first, just so there's no surprises. So this is heading eastbound. So we're going toward 88th Street. Going this direction is down here. So as you can see, we are keeping one lane of traffic between the two roundabouts. I will jump to the 88th Street roundabout. We do widen it back out to 2 lanes there, so I'll go there next. I just want to show you, in between these two roundabouts, it's about 700, 800 feet. We are keeping it a single lane. And that helps with the merge and transition. We don't have cars kind of in 2 lanes heading westbound and then going down to 1 lane and merging over. But we do widen back out at 88th, which I'll show you in a second, but I just want to point that out. In regards to landscaping in the roundabout, this is something Leslie and I have been discussing as well. So the plans called for I forget the tree type, but trees throughout the roundabout and some rocks. We're not recommending trees. The reason is we have 2 utilities. We have a storm drain system that you can kind of see. That SD line goes right through the center, and then we have a sanitary sewer line that goes right through the center, and an irrigation. That's a reuse irrigation line. So that's an irrigation main. All go through this intersection. Actually, there's not many utilities in the road except for right here. So we're not proposing any trees because those roots get very deep and they can impact sewer and storm. So we are mainly looking at boulders, xeriscaping, maybe some small shrubs in this roundabout from a landscaping perspective.
Could we do some art there? I'm sorry. Because CAPS is always looking for more places to put art. And is there a max height, in terms of, obviously you don't want a 20-foot something because then this could obstruct your view.
Height's not really concerned too much in roundabouts because you're not really looking straight. You're looking left and right. You can talk about CAPS.
Sure. I think this would be ideal location for art.
Okay.
Low profile, probably. It is a smaller roundabout, but I do think there's opportunity. So we've talked about making sure we have infrastructure in place to run electrical over there so that we can light something if CAPS or the town decides to install something there. We would also have to look at the depth with all the utilities going through there. So as we found out when we were putting things in the median along Rock Creek, we have some limitations in height of the piece of art and the depth of the foundation.
Well, Coyote Hawk could be amazing right here, so.
Wouldn't be a bad spot for Christmas lights either. Put a few trees up there, light them.
We're not putting lights in this part of Rock Creek.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Do you want this meeting to be?
Some like red trees with lights.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to do some sort of art. So definitely something we could look at. We likely wouldn't go in with the project. I think it's safe to say, but it is something we can look at putting in later. And we can design it such that we're not tearing out stuff to put it in. We can just do rock or something.
Hey, Brandon, from a landscaping perspective, and I'm assuming this is already taken care of, but in the event of an emergency where you said it could still be 2-lane, the landscaping won't prohibit 2 lanes from getting through, correct?
No, and I don't have a drawing. I do have a schematic. I don't have it in the plan set that shows 2-way traffic through here and turning radiuses. But basically what would happen is the cars in the existing lane would be forced to kind of cut over this section. This is a drive over 2-inch, not 2-foot curb. And then the new lane would come across here and have the normal roadway through this point to get through there.
Okay, so nothing in the center is going to impact
nothing
that.
in this tightest radius would. That's meant to not ever drive over, ever, in the very center.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. All right, just want to look at 88th Street roundabout while we're looking at this. So as I mentioned, coming from, this would be Coal Creek Drive over here to the west. So as we approach the 88th Street roundabout, we do widen back up to 2 lanes approaching the roundabout. So if you're going left toward 88th, the hospital, Monarch High School, you're going to be in the left lane, and you will stay in that lane. If you're going through the roundabout, you'll be in the right lane. We will put up message boards when we make this change because it will be a change. I mean, people are used to being able to go straight in the left lane. It's always been the case that you can't go left from the right lane, so that's not as much of a change, but the left lanes always had the ability to go straight. So we are working on some advanced signage as we approach this, kind of telling people, hey, right lane straight, left lane left. But there will be a change, and I'm sure there'll be a learning curve, but we'll put message boards out to try to make it as unpainful as possible. If you approach from the east, we are keeping it 2 lanes in Rock Creek all the way from 88th to Rock Creek Parkway. No change in that section. But when you do approach the roundabout, if you're in the right lane, you will be forced to go right. If you're in the left lane, you're forced to go the through movement through the roundabout, and those arrows associate that. We're actually looking at putting arrows potentially here. I know there was some concern if you put a left arrow here, people think you'll go left. We also have a sign right here that says one way this way. So it kind of fixes that behavior because you see that sign. Those are things we're looking at 100% design. No change on the 88th. It widens out to 2 lanes, and it's exactly like it is now. If you want to go right, you stay in the right lane. If you go through or left, you stay in the far left lane. And then we are keeping 1 lane between 88th and Coal Creek Drive as proposed, just to prevent quick merger, someone trying to pass someone before the next roundabout, making an unsafe situation. A couple other things I'll point out here. We are proposing some striping changes. We are not touching this island median at 88th or anything in it. We are making some striping changes, which we think will work. Most cars will follow the striping. It'll slow traffic down going around the roundabout. So we're adding that to both the east and west sides of the roundabout, as you can see the dashed striping. So this would be yellow striping. Actually, that's probably white striping. Yeah, it'll be white striping in the roundabout to force cars to kind of slow down and go through that movement. The other thing we're looking at is we are trying to determine if our current RRFBs are programmable, so these flash when these are hit, because that was a concern we heard from the public. Our goal would be that if someone hits these RRFBs, it flashes for this movement, it wouldn't flash for this movement. And the thought was if we make them all flash all the time, it could create some kind of driver nonchalance, like these things are always flashing, I'm just going to drive through. If we can't sync these with these, we've actually proposed another RRFB here that would be flashing when this one's hit. So if we can't sync them rather than replacing them all, when you hit these, we would have another RRFB that flashes right here. So that way you know, hey, I'm about to encounter a pedestrian, something's going on, there's flashing.
Brandon, what would prevent the town from being able to sync those two crosswalks?
It's just the way they're wired, the way the RFBs come, and the remote kind of Bluetooth talking. So we got to look at the existing ones we have to see if we can do that. We were able to do that at Picken. These are a different brand, so Alex Bullen's looking into that.
Okay.
Our goal would be, if they are programmable without replacing them, to have them all four light up. If not, we could add another RFB here that would light up when this one's pushed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are the elevations of the lanes changing significantly than what they are right now?
No, with this being a mill and overlay, we're removing 4 inches of asphalt and putting back 4 inches of asphalt in general.
Do you see any possible issues with through traffic going to the west, continuing, and then traffic coming from 88th, crossing over?
I want to make sure I understand your question.
So the inside lane will continue straight through, and the one coming in it looks like it will be like a little bit of an overlap. You'd have to cross a lane to continue going straight. If I'm looking at it correctly and I'm thinking about the elevations right now, is that going to be an advantage for the oncoming traffic because of the height?
So currently you can do both. If you're coming this way, you can go straight or right out of this right lane. I would say just driving this almost every day, most cars are going right. If they're in this lane, we definitely have some going through. So that will be a change. I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question, Jason.
I'm just concerned about the cars coming from 88th onto Rock Creek Parkway going west. It just seems like that's an opportunity, given right now they're coming out and then they go downhill. So cars, I see running that constantly when I'm traveling. Okay. Is that going to make it more prohibitive for them to go through that and not yield right of way, or less?
I don't know. So I know currently, if you're traveling this way, you actually have a choice. Like I can be in the left lane or the right lane. And I have seen some issues where folks here just assume everyone is going to stay in the tight lane and they feel like they have a free flow, which is not the case.
Okay.
They have to yield. I mean, we could see drivers wanting to stay in this inside lane because that's natural behavior, but that's obviously a left turn lane and that sign says it there. The arrow's there. So they'll have to stay in the outside lane to go eastbound on Rock Creek Parkway. Was that your question, or was your question going westbound?
I think maybe my question is, the way I'm thinking about it, it's probably more of a pattern of behavior than of how we're laying it out. Because I do know that one resident did send an email, and Councilmember Shaw answered it very well, stating that we pretty much have to try to re-educate people on turning circles, because people always think that when they get there, they've got the right of way versus the car coming in. Yeah. It's got the right of way. Even if the car is like a quarter of a way around it, they have to wait for that car to go by. It's just right now, it's a concern for me always with the traffic coming out of there, and I think the design will certainly help it. But I think my question, as I'm thinking it through, is more going to be more of a pattern of behavior than what we're showing them to do.
Yeah, because now they can, if you go straight, you come through here, and I think most cars tend to stay in this lane. They have the ability to use either lane.
Yep. But the right-hand lane that goes straight up Rock Creek Parkway West, that seems like they seem to just use that to take an advantage to accelerate versus the one that's going to be going around it and then heading to the east.
So the goal is to reduce the speed. That's why we're putting this striping in, so you can't hug this corner and try to take it fast. You have to go slow, stay outside. And we also want to force them into that right outside lane, so that's the goal.
Yeah, no, I think the tighter angles is definitely going to help that. Okay. Yeah, you answered that, Brandon. Thank you.
And we are proposing some island work. So these two islands, all three of the islands are being modified while the roundabout itself is not. So you can see here, we are changing the island. So that's to serve a couple purposes. One, to keep that single lane, and two, to keep speeds down. So you can't just swing wide and accelerate. You got to keep it tight. Otherwise you'll hit this median. Same thing as you exit the roundabout. We want to make it clear that there's only one lane exiting the roundabout, not two. So we extended this pork chop median out. And up here on 88th, we had to extend this one out so you couldn't keep going straight through the roundabout. So it forces you to turn right if you're in this right turn lane.
Well, Brandon, will those islands at 88th be that 2-inch lip that are similar to?
I'll have to look back. I believe they are to be driven over. Yes.
Okay. And that is, does that present any challenges for snowplow operators hitting that and jarring their teeth loose or anything?
No, I've shared this with our snow contractor, and he always says everything's fine. But, I mean, with the 15-foot width, he's like, I see no problems. Okay. And he kind of likes the stores to push snow in and store snow. We do have the bus stop here, so I told him you can't store snow here because I think the bus stop's right there. But they didn't see any problems because it's 15-foot here, 18-foot here. They're wide enough, plenty wide for a snowplow.
I was just more worried about the snowplow catching it and, having very
We would
jarring
probably put
experience.
markers on each one of these so they see them.
Okay.
Actually don't know if we have markers out there. No, I can't tell. But if not, we typically put markers like we did on, if you've driven through downtown, you see markers on those RTD stops we put just so they don't get hit by snowplows. We'll likely do the same with these.
Brandon, on that same one, is there going to be a conversation about moving that bus stop?
No, not currently.
Okay.
Is that something?
It meets all the standards
It does.
of where it is. It doesn't need to move 10 feet west or whatever.
We've shared this with RTD
Okay.
and with having the road width here where they can still pull out. They will be blocking the bike lane during a bus stop, but that's, I think that's the same everywhere. But yeah, it's,
Okay.
They didn't have a problem.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Brandon, before you leave this, one thing I hadn't realized when you showed us the concept, and I think this is fantastic, is we shorten the crossing distance, here and here for the pedestrians, because this is the one that I've nearly been hit here a couple times because people are looking in the wrong direction, as usual. But now it's only one lane of traffic that we're crossing over here, and ditto over here. I think this is going to be great. Sort of one of the benefits of only having one lane come back into the roadway.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the comments is the crossbars. I mean, the crosswalk bars aren't shown on this drawing, so that's something that has to be added. We won't be changing this crosswalk. This is a colored concrete crosswalk currently.
Yeah.
So this one will remain colored concrete. These two are going to just switch to a typical crossing as designed. And the reason being, anytime you have asphalt concrete hitting each other, that's a failure point for the asphalt and the concrete. So that's why we're taking out the concrete, putting in striping. Plus the concrete fades.
Now, you can see the conflict here, especially the erosion from all the water coming down the hill is terrible right there. There's a real low spot here, and it's usually puddle every time it rains or the sprinklers are on.
All right.
Also, Brandon, I know we're going to have a bunch of extra flex poles after you get done at Cold Creek. So if you need to stick them along here to help people figure out where the stripes are.
That's a good point. Yeah, if we have problems with people short-circuiting the striping, that's definitely something we could look at. I know people love the flex post in town. No one's watching, right, Nick? Still.
We're on YouTube.
Okay, next I just want to talk about the phasing. And obviously, whatever contractor we get on board may have a completely different plan. But right now, this is kind of what we're showing from a phasing and a construction standpoint. So the pink, red, whatever color that is where they'd be doing construction. So this is Rock Creek in Indiana. So the goal would be to start construction on the outside edge first and let cars stay on the inside. That works pretty well here. As you continue down, it gets much more difficult to build around.
Just one question. When you go through here, when you're doing that, we'll just have one lane of travel and everybody's just gonna have to slow down and let the car in front of them turn. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we'll have signage to just remind people that if the blinker's on, maybe don't, run into them. Yeah.
That's a big sign. Yeah, so the goal would be to keep the right turn movement.
Okay.
This is westbound on Rock Creek on Cold Creek. Yep.
Okay.
I'm much more worried about the phasing on McCaslin that we're about to start construction on and that one lane turn.
Yeah.
But I won't get into that now. So as you approach the roundabout, this is where construction will be more difficult. So as you can see, they're kind of proposing to construct half of those medians at a time, or 75% in this case. It's definitely doable. But that's kind of how we're going to have to sequence it to keep traffic flowing. Again, when we go to construction, the contractor might propose something different, and I'll bring that up if they do, but this is our thoughts, and this is part of the design process. 88th gets a little challenging. The movement through 88th is not the challenge. So if you ever drive 88th, you'll notice when we did the reconstruction, as you approach Monarch and the hospital, they stopped conveniently right here. And that was strategic because you can't get two-way traffic through this and do half at a time. If you have cars coming this way, you can't send cars the opposite way through a roundabout. It just doesn't work. So right now, what they're talking about is doing possibly nighttime work. That hasn't been decided yet. I have concerns with that due to the proximity of homes in that area. So nighttime work would be annoying if I lived there. So I think about it.
Well, and it's also the hospital access,
Yep.
right?
Yes, it is. But we are likely looking at a potential full closure when we build this section, whether we do it at night or in the day. And that's just due to the sequencing. There's no way to send two-way traffic here. And we will talk to emergency services. I haven't done that yet. What we did when we did Indiana and Colton is we kind of kept millings there so you could drive through it in case of emergency. This will be a quick construction phase because it is a mill and overlay. So you're probably talking about a 1 to 3 day closure, not weeks or months. But that will be the challenge. And the concrete work we can do likely and narrow the lanes, but the actual asphalt work itself will be a challenge.
Yeah, right or wrong, the pandemic helped us because we shut 88th down entirely, but we had an emergency lane. If an ambulance needed to get to Avista, it had a separate special lane. It could go through the barricades and everything else for those, it was 3 months, but for the 1 to 3 days, if emergency services knows they can plow through the barricades, then I think we'll be okay in that sense.
And with the 4-inch mill and overlay, it's a 4-inch drop. It's not a 12-inch, 18-inch drop like we have when we do a full reconstruct. So if we had to get an ambulance through it, I don't think it'd be a problem, but that's something we'll talk to, and I'll talk to the emergency services about as well. So then when we start constructing on the inside lanes, that's what we're showing here. So theoretically, this is all done now. Cars are driving on new pavement on the right, and we're constructing in the middle. This is Indiana Rock Creek, head down to 88th. So this is where it gets a little tighter. To build this roundabout, we will have to prevent the through movement on Coal Creek Drive and the left turn movement on Coal Creek Drive. So that will absolutely be a disturbance for folks living there. The goal is to finish 88th Street first before school starts in August. So that's how we have the plans notated now. So if you're going this way, you could easily go down to 88th, go through the roundabout and come back. Would be the goal. If you're headed this direction, you'd have to go to Indiana. My gut is that most people might start cutting through the neighborhood to Indiana, which I know is never ideal. But just to build the roundabout itself, there's not an option to not close that through movement that we could see. Yeah, so I'm guessing if cars live back here and they want to go left toward 88, they'll likely cut down here, come down and cut left at the light, most likely. Again, yeah, but I know people don't like folks driving through the neighborhood, and that's something we want to prevent as much as possible, but we really are kind of limited here to build this infrastructure. And then this is what 88th would look like, keeping cars on the outside as we construct the inside. In this case, we would have already kind of built this section and it'd be operational. So pink is construction, white is not construction.
Brandon, how long would that cross-through be closed for the construction of the roundabout?
I don't know. I would guess it would be weeks.
Weeks, okay. Thank you.
Probably 3 to 5 weeks, if I had to guess. But anytime we get a bid, we require a contractor to provide a schedule too. So that's something we can look at. If one contractor has 3 and another has 7, something we can take into consideration. That was it for my planned talking points, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a question on this, since you have it up. So you're going to do the mill and overlay for this little chunk here, which we didn't do in 2020 when we should have. What about the rest of the circle? Are you doing any asphalt work on any of it?
Yeah, all the asphalt's getting milled and overlaid.
Okay.
So everything will be new now once we finish this project from McCaslin all the way almost to Honey Creek Lane, because we've already done,
Yeah, we did the other chunk.
we've done this section. Yeah, so it'll be brand new all the way from Honey Creek Lane to McCaslin once this project's finished. You can kind of see the limits here. It's hard to see. There's a line right there where they stopped on 88th, right there at the top of that median. You can kind of see that line. And you can see the line here where they stopped right before the crosswalk, or maybe it's right after the crosswalk, but it's on one side of this crosswalk. But we will be doing all the pavement in the roundabout.
Okay.
I mean, the one benefit of a two-lane roundabout is you can close a lane and keep a lane open versus a single lane roundabout. But we've had to work on roadway. I mean, we had to work on this roundabout. We did Colton and McCaslin in April, I believe. The guys did crack sealing, so we had it closed at night for about 5 hours, and it worked. I didn't get any complaints. So, but that's how we have to sequence that work when we have roundabouts. Any questions?
One last question. This goes back to the Google Earth that you showed at the beginning. There's a lot of geometric shapes in the new landscaping, and is that an art project because they're all sort of different and not symmetrical and just
I don't know.
maybe?
You've never seen it from this angle? I shouldn't have showed it to you. You've driven by it, Mike, and you haven't said anything.
Stamped,
Okay.
yeah.
You'll never see it, though. I mean, you'll never see it from this angle.
A racetrack.
Space, like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it was the
I never looked. at
landscape
those.
architect's design, so, yes.
Something for the cosmonauts. They worked out.
Brandon, just a question on the engineer's estimate.
That's my next thing.
2.6 million, which I went back to look at the March 10th meeting, and I think for the mill and overlay with the value engineered roundabout is 2.8 to 2.9, or I'm sorry, 285 to 295. So looks like it's coming in lower, but obviously, this is 2025 costing. And if we fast forward it by 6, 12, 18 months, or actually 6 months, there could be different tariffs tomorrow. What's your thought right now with where we're coming in relative to what the estimate was back in March?
Sorry, thanks, Neil. I meant to talk about this. So we originally budgeted in the sales tax ballot measure before, when it went to vote, we had a budgeted about 4.25 million for this project, kind of slated. So the estimate back in March, as Neil mentioned, was 2.85 to 2.95 with a mill and overlay and a valued engineer roundabout. So they're estimating 2.6. So we're kind of in that same ballpark. If we did a full depth reconstruction, they were estimating 4.6 to 4.7. So we're saving roughly 2 million with the mill and overlay, which we think will still give us a very good, useful life, and it's definitely worth the savings. Our goal is, from a schedule standpoint, to get this on the street this week from a bidding standpoint. Bids would come in late June, and the goal would be to do a special meeting with council between the June 23rd and July 14th to keep the project moving, because we are running out of our construction season. If bids came, and I hate engineers' estimates because the market
wrong.
tells you what the market is. I mean,
They're always wrong.
earlier this year, our bids were coming in half the engineer's estimate, and then McCaslin, they came in 15% over the engineer's estimate. So it really depends on what the market says and what the contractors are looking for. I have heard from some contractors that bidding later in the year, they kind of get past that hump and they're looking for work, and others are booked throughout the year. So let's see what bids come in at. If we bid this project and low bids $3.5 million, we may say, hey, this isn't the market we want to see right now. We're going to push this project to 2026 and bid it in March. So we're starting early in the season. And those are conversations we can have with council, but I recommend we keep pushing forward, try to get it on the street this week, get bids in, bring it to council at the end of June, early July, see if we can get it done this year before October when it starts getting snow, would be my goal. And hopefully to be at this, 2.4 with a contingency is what they're estimating. It'd be great to be in that $2.5 million range.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Neil. I meant to talk
Yeah.
about the engineer's estimate.
No, my bias is still to try to do it when school's not in session, just because of the disruption in terms of trying to get to Mohai and Monar K8 with the roundabouts. So kind of have to see where we go with the budget or with the bids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just briefly, I mean, since we're doing project updates, so this is the underpass contractor. They're planning to switch traffic June 11th. So they'll be on this side of Rock Creek Parkway and they'll have this side exposed. That is going to change the sequencing on the intersection project, which I did put in the digest. That contractor is now looking to start this phase first, the northwest corner, and then do the southwest side, because we can't close this side of the Rock Creek while they have this side closed. So the goal is to finish these two phases first, and then jump over here and do this phase. And then when this contractor finishes, we will come back and do this phase. Right now, the schedules look perfect for that. This contractor is actually ahead of schedule, the underpass contractor. So we're thinking this will work out to do phase 3 and 4, then phase 2 and phase 1 last is our goal, because we can't close all of Rock Creek, we can't close all of McCaslin. And they're scheduled to switch traffic over, like I said, June 11th. They would have done it sooner, but being a CDOT project, they have to approve the asphalt mix design, which they haven't done yet this year, which is crazy since CDOT does nothing with this road. And then this contractor's hoping to start, he's either going to start next week or June 9th. I'm pushing for June 9th to give us more time for the water main contractor to get out of here, which is currently like right here. But also doing this phase is going to save us some money on the water line, because we're not going to have to pave this patch and then tear it back out. So it looks like it's going to work out, and all the contractors have been very amenable to kind of schedule changes from that perspective. That's it for me.
Brandon, a lot of that might have to do with you and the fact that you're working with all of them at the same time, with Leslie and the whole staff. So just kudos to you, because I think that, take that in and, know that we all appreciate it, because the number of projects you're managing right now is more than I can remember as a resident, but really important ones and way overdue. So thank you for your hard work.
Thanks. Let's save the kudos until they finish. There's a lot that can still go wrong.
It's too modest.
Construction's where the surprises come, so design's easy. But yeah, thank you for the time tonight, and if there's any questions on any of the projects, happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Great. Brandon, thank you. Next up is the consent agenda, and Councilmember Miller pulled 5G.
Yes.
Which is consideration of a resolution of the town approving agreement for community park playground design contracts.
Yes, and just a quick comment, totally fine with the contract and A to Z Recreation, thanks to staff for all the work and getting them lined up. Something that came up in our recent park meeting that I thought was interesting and definitely worth passing along and getting ahead of it as they're doing the final designs to present to the board. One of our park members mentioned that any children with, who are on the spectrum or any sort of sensory processing needs, it would be helpful with those two different play areas to have one fenced in. It just relieves the parents and having to, try to manage as much, and allows the children to play with a little bit more freedom. So as we're talking to them and they're bringing a final design to the board, I figured it would be worth mentioning now so that we can get ahead of that. So that's really all I had, but otherwise thought it was great, and Park was extremely excited about the design. So thank you for all your work on that.
Excellent. So let's do a motion to approve.
We got to approve the consent agenda first.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Neil. You've done this before. This is my first rodeo. Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda items. Motion from Councilmember Shaw. Do I have a second? Okay, Councilmember Miller, thank you. Are we spending money on this?
Yes.
So roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Serbu,
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Cowish,
Yes.
Councilmember Craycraft,
Yes.
Councilmember Foster.
Yes.
Thank you.
So passes unanimously. Next up, we have a proclamation declaring June Pride Month. Who would like to read this?
I'm happy to.
Oh, great.
Proclamation declaring June Pride Month. Whereas the town of Superior recognizes and proclaims the month of June 2025. Says 24. Am I correct? Do you know?
Just roll with it.
Okay, sorry. As lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month throughout the town, and whereas the month of June commemorates the 1969 Stonewall riots in which members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community sparked the LGBTQ+ rights movement in response to the increasing aggression and discrimination. And whereas our nation was founded on the principle that all people have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but this promise has long incoming for many Americans, and the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer communities in Superior are an important part of the vibrant culture of Superior. And whereas the rainbow flag is widely recognized as a symbol of pride, inclusion, and support for social movements that advocate for LGBTQ+ people in society, and whereas we will remain committed to protecting the rights of all residents to live and work openly and authentically, and support the visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ+ people in our community. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the LGBTQ+ community, and is an opportunity to act and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal human rights. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the mayor and town council of the town of Superior do hereby proclaim June 2025 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQ+ community, and reaffirms the town's dedication to continue building a shared culture of inclusiveness and acceptance, in witness whereof on the 27th day of May 2025. Signed by our Mayor Pro Tem, Jason.
Excellent. Councilmember Craycraft, thank you. Next up is a proclamation declaring June 6th as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Does anyone like to read this, or you want me to take it? It's a long one. Okay. Oh. This proclamation on behalf of J.D. Mangett declares June 6, 2025 to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the town of Superior, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Whereas every day more than 125 Americans are killed by gun violence, and whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries, and whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is a mayor's highest responsibility, and whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas June 7, 2025 would have been the 28th birthday of Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later. And whereas to help honor Hadia and the 125 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 6, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 6th to help raise awareness about gun violence, and whereas by wearing orange on June 6th through June 8th, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives and lost human potential of Americans stolen by gun violence. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the mayor and the town council of the town of Superior, Colorado do hereby proclaim June 7 to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We encourage all residents to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 27th day of May 2025.
I should have caught this earlier. In the fourth whereas, we use the word citizens, and I'm wondering if we could use the word residents to be just more inclusive. But
You caught it on a different one too. That's a very sharp, very detailed. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So Mike was paying attention to me, good. Fantastic, okay.
Someone was gonna pick this up. I think someone was supposed to.
For the gay pride issue, okay. Oh, perfect, come on up. Can you announce who you are?
Yeah, my name is Mark Lester, and I work with Rocky Mountain Equality, which is an advocacy organization that works around Boulder County and really the whole state of Colorado on advancing LGBTQ plus rights.
Excellent, excellent. Should we do a photograph? Yeah. Let's do a photograph with you.
I was thinking about that when I was getting ready, but I didn't know if anybody let them know.
Last year.
Thank you all so much.
Why are you going to take a picture?
So we look forward to all the Pride events next month. There's a lot going on. We're in contact.
No, that's what, yeah. And it's funny because, let me see, where's exactly, oh, this is the gun one? Because Shannon had these guns first. And I should have really checked them, but it's all good.
Okay, moving on.
Get you a good copy.
Do you guys want to take a break? You want to keep rolling?
I think we've got to approve.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
You're fine.
But I think, since you pulled the consent 5G off, I think we need a separate motion for that item.
5G.
We have it, yeah.
Oh, do you have separate motion? Okay. No, hey, learning curve. Motion to approve 5G, consideration of resolution of the town approving agreement for community park playground design contract. A motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Councilmember Foster,
I'll second.
second from Councilmember Miller. And we are spending money on this, so roll call, please.
Yep. Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Foster,
Yes.
Councilmember Craycraft,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Serbu,
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Cowish.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, chugging right along. Consideration of the ordinance of the town council for the public hearing. Do you guys want to take a break now, or do you want to see what we can do? Push through? It's only 7:15, okay, great. Okay, we have a public hearing. Lydia, do we have proof of publication? We do. We do, excellent. Town attorney, is there anything to add to this? Okay, great, let's gavel it in, and let's welcome Jeffrey Weathers from the planning department, and Renee, who is no longer our interim, she is our director of planning, so congratulations. Welcome.
Thanks, Leslie.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeffrey Weathers. I'm with the Planning Department here at the Town of Superior, and I'm here to present this next agenda item, which is the rezoning of lots 1 through 6 on Block Q in Original Town, from light industry to medium-density residential. The applicant is Dorothy Kuffner Family Trust, represented by Elizabeth and Rick Kuffner, who are present tonight online if we have any questions for them. This map illustrates the location of the lots in question in Original Town. Combined, the lots comprise about 42,000 square feet, or just shy of an acre. They are located between 4th and 5th Avenue along Coal Creek Drive. This picture is taken from before the Marshall Fire, and just to show that the lots have included in the past one single-family home, an inactive historic building, a former school, as I understand it, a mobile home, and sort of an industrial storage lot, if you will. Currently, the lots are zoned light industry, and that's a zoning designation that's intended to accommodate comparatively less intensive enterprises engaged in manufacturing, processing, creating, repairing, renovating, painting, cleaning, assembling goods, merchandise, and equipment, according to the code. This proposal would integrate the lots with the lots to the south in the zoning district of medium-density residential. So everything, south of there in original town until you get to the open space. Well, it's the PD, I guess, in that spot, but is zoned that way. Other zone districts that are adjacent are in the west and the north. There's the PD zone districts, and then in the east, it's low-density residential. Permitted uses in light industry district include automobile service stations, car washing facilities, bottling plants, industrial equipment sales, leasing, nurseries, storage facilities, contractor supply yards. In general, the Coal Creek Crossing PD to the west is and the low density residential district to the east are both single family homes or single unit homes, while the Superior Marketplace to the west is retail and office commercial uses. The RM zone district permits single unit dwellings as well as 2-unit dwellings and multi-unit dwellings up to 6 per lot. Both the RL and RM zones allow accessory dwelling units up to 1 per single unit or duplex. With respect to development standards, you can see from this chart that the 3 residential districts in the area all pretty much have allow the same form. They're generally the same height, setbacks, size, parking restrictions, those sorts of things are all roughly the same. As detailed in the staff memo, the staff finds this proposal to meet the applicable criteria for rezoning to medium-density residential, insofar as the rezoning of the subject lots would further several policies and goals found in the 2012 Comprehensive Plan and the 2025 housing strategies. Some of those are outlined on the slide. On May 6th, the Planning Commission voted to approve a resolution recommending that the Town Council approve the zoning application. If the town finds that the application meets the criteria for rezoning, staff has included an ordinance for the rezoning application of lots 1 through 6 on Block Q in Original Town to medium-density residential. Staff and, as I said, the applicant are here to answer questions if you have any.
Great. Any questions?
I had one question. We'd received an email from a resident to this rezoning application, and there was a concern about building up to 6 units. And I understand that the market will really drive what ultimately gets constructed or proposed, I should say. But in the meantime, do we have a crystal ball in terms of what we think might get developed out there?
I think
based on our understanding of current market conditions and what developers are interested in.
Elizabeth could take some of that. I think that there are several ways to look at that, and one is just like the physical constraints of our requirements. I think make it unlikely to begin with. Parking is difficult on such small lots. It's hard to see how you could get so many units, all the parking required. What would probably need to be stairwells and things like that to have a stacked building if it was that. I think the geometry would be difficult. I think that we've had testimony bear that out. When we did the housing strategies plan, we had a market assessment done for that area to see what was feasible, and basically they came back to us and said, you know, single-family homes are really what's feasible here right now, given the high cost of the land. There is also testimony by a resident who's also a builder in town who basically said the same thing. And I think that Elizabeth can correct me if I'm wrong, but she testified that the person that is interested in these lots is really considering building single-unit homes.
Thank you. If that's the case, why isn't the ask to make them single, low density residential?
That's a good question, and that's really up to the applicant. They decided that. Staff found that that is consistent with the code, kind of leans toward meeting some more of our housing goals as the town, and also feels that flexibility in uncertain circumstances, which, you know, they persist, is probably a better move. But, you know, they could decide to go that way if they wanted to propose RL. I think that that would be equally supportable.
Jeffrey, along those lines, though, the board could approve it as light residential. Like, we don't have to approve it as medium density residential as proposed.
That's maybe a Nick question. I don't know who could make those determinations.
But doesn't the board have that power as the land use authority?
Yeah, but I think the application was for this, so I think you have to act on the application, and the application is to rezone to residential medium. So that would be strictly legally answering on the spot. You know, I would want to definitely speak with the applicant. Okay. Instead of just, you know, pulling the
Today's
rug
the
and
first
changing
reading.
it.
Yeah, today's the first
changing
reading,
it at the
so
last second.
That's why I want to propose this today, because that seems to have been the question that was sent to us by the Planning Commission, is they didn't know what their land use authority was. Now I'm confused because I thought we had land use powers and that we could choose not to approve something or to change, you know, what we would approve relative to what was applied to.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly not approve it, but like I said,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. It's just that's like a big question that I don't want to answer right this second.
It seems to me like they could pull the application and resubmit it. That way there's no vote, or we can say no right now, and then they'd have to come back again and resubmit. So
correct, and that would be the way that would greatly, like, and Matt's going to say something too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say, you could deny their application for medium density residential. You could also, if the applicant would agree to low density residential at the time of the hearing, then you could approve it that way too.
Okay. Jason, she's raising.
Oh yeah, please. Emily, Elizabeth on Zoom would like to speak.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elizabeth Kuffner, representing the Dorothy Kuffner Trust. So when we initially put in this application, it was my dad and the other trustee had decided that multifamily was consistent with the zoning on that part of town. And that would give any potential future buyers at that point an option between basically a duplex or a single family home. With the contract that's in place right now, he has the intentions on putting in single family homes and has no intentions on doing duplexes or anything like that.
Fair enough.
But we didn't. We had already started the process and whatnot. So we just wanted to get it to a point where he could at least build single family homes at that point. We didn't want to have to start everything over.
Makes sense. Well, that makes total sense. And I think if anything, you know, then I think to Matt, your point that you just made, it seems that the applicant could be potentially amenable to a revision of the application to light density residential, given that they've got a potential contract already.
Well, if we were to move to zone it medium density, then, for example, if this developer took the land, sat on it, and decided to sell it later on, then there's no whole bars to what anybody wanted to do with it. They could come in and put six plexes on each one. Can you talk to me, Jeffrey, a little bit about what the infrastructure is for the town, what we would have to do if, for example, let's say they wanted to do a quadplex on each one. I think currently there's only one tap for the 6 lots, sewer, gas, and water.
My understanding is that there are currently to the lots, there are sewer and water taps to 2. And that there are stubs, or whatever they call them, sorry, all the way up to block 7 in total, but those would have to be extended to the lots.
Okay, and what would the cost of the town have to be if they were to do that?
The cost of the town?
Yeah.
I don't know. There would be a cost of the applicant. They would probably
So
have
this,
to
we wouldn't be.
pay that development.
They would have to tap directly to the line. We wouldn't have to do anything with the
Yeah.
line going forward. Okay. So there would be 4, I mean, if you, just ballpark, right? 4 lots, 4 tap fees for each one. You're looking at are we, I think our water supply is pretty good. Are we okay with the sewer, that much additional load on the lines? We wouldn't have to do any upgrades of anything?
I received no comments from Public Works as being concerned about this. So I don't know the exact pressure that it would place on that, but no one was concerned when they saw the application.
Okay, that's good. 'Cause the only other thing that, I mean, I'm very hesitant to go medium density is that intersection. We have had concern by residents about the amount of traffic. And if you do medium density residential, depending on what the count is, parking you become an issue. You'd be looking at a lot of on-street parking, as well as a lot more traffic on 4th and Coal Creek. And we really haven't planned on doing anything to that intersection. I think for the most part, we're leaving it alone. I think we'd have to come back and have to have a discussion on that, depending upon what the volume of traffic is going to be.
And I think that, sorry to cut you off, but I
No,
think
please.
that, if they had a multifamily residential, they would have to come back with quite a lot of plans before they got there. They would have to subdivide, probably. They would have to, there are things that would probably have to be done. I think we would get another crack at fixing those things. But, the fewer units that they have, I should say, the smaller, the more units they have per lot, the more parking there is, because for 1 bedroom, it's 2 spaces. So, you would also have a lot of off-street parking. There may be on-street parking, but, they'd need to provide a lot as well.
I think Town Manager Matt Magley would like to speak.
Yeah, thanks. I think I can help here on a number of things. So the mains for the water and sewer were installed as part of the Coal Creek Drive improvements all the way to the end of the block, so they're ready to serve those lots. We've looked at other applications for the southern lots in the past on a 3-plex, and it just didn't work. So that's why you see the duplex that were built on those lots. So I think, just on past experience, the most a builder could do on these lots is duplexes. From our past experience in looking at this, just because of lot coverages, height, parking, all those things come into play when you're looking at more than a duplex. Also, if they wanted to do like a big multi-use complex, they would have to replat the lots, so they'd have to come back to the town at some point in the future to combine all 6 of those lots into 1 lot, so that council would have another opportunity to approve or disapprove that at that point. So I think from our perspective in the past, the most they could do on these lots is duplexes, and of course single family works as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Anyone else? Yep. I think I can agree with Neil. I would like to see if they do want to do single family on it, we make an amendment to it so it's single family. I think, we do need more multifamily. I'm just not sure this is the right area for it. I think the lots tend to definitely be much more suited towards single family than medium density for duplexes or triplexes. There's always a possibility, depending on market value, if building got very, very inexpensive, you could easily put 3, 4 on these. Subdividing, it's not going to be a major issue. And if there is already a discussion and there are residents concerned about this, I'd like to at least have a discussion, because we're not making a decision tonight. We're going to continue this to the June 9th meeting. I think I'd like to talk more about what the possibility for, low density residential would be.
For me, I think because everything south of it is medium density, and from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like it's virtually impossible the way things are for anything but a duplex or a single family to go on those lots. It feels consistent with kind of that whole section of the neighborhood, especially as we're talking about our housing goals and we're talking about the very limited space we have to put housing that could be, you know, duplexes or anything that's not a single family, which we seem to have an abundance of. It feels like this is an area where it would be consistent to have something like a duplex. I would be curious to know what kind of safeguards we could put in place to avoid some sort of massive, you know, triplex or quadplex going on one of those lots. I know it sounds like right now we can't, but.
One of the interesting things is I think that regardless, you're not going to get a massive anything. I mean, basically at the end of the day, you're going to be distinguishing between, you know, a possible 6-person family living in a home or 6 individuals living in a home. And like at that point, you're kind of worried about how many doors it has, because what you have is 32 feet. It's going to be that high. It's not going to have more than 40% lot coverage, just like the house next door. It's, you know, going to have, if you went that big, it would have even bigger side setbacks than it would if you were a single family home. You know, so the form is locked in. So I don't think you have to worry about something form-wise being inconsistent. It's more just about, do you want individuals who aren't living in the same unit, living in a single house?
I don't know if that would necessarily stop them from, you know, if the developer or whomever it is buys all 6 lots, they can change them. They can go, maybe they can.
It's per lot though.
Per lot.
It's per lot.
But they
So
could join,
three, they still get
instead of
6.
having 6, they could have 3 lots if they wanted to, correct? And that would change the
Yeah.
counts completely.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I mean,
that's
they could
the.
spread it out.
No, that's the thing I'm a little bit concerned here with working with developers, and I'm not saying this is development driven, but once they own the lot, they can do what they want with it. They have the rights to do what they want, and at that point, I'm very hesitant to tell them what they can do with it once they have it. If they want to divide it into 2 lots, and then they want to put 2 apartment buildings on it. Now you're looking at medium density here, which is not sustainable to the area because that intersection can't sustain the traffic. We're not going to be able to do the parking on it. It just doesn't strike me as it's beneficial for that area, whereas we have other areas in town, we could certainly explore multifamily housing that would make a lot more sense than in this small area in this part of town.
They would have to provide a traffic impact study though, correct? Like
If they
for
were-
something larger.
If they were going to
yeah.
do something larger, yeah.
Right.
I just wanted to also add something to think about and consider. If we're trying to meet state requirements for the TOD within a half a mile, these lots fall within a half a mile, and having the zoning in place to allow more density gets us closer to allowing more units in that area. It's not significant per se, but it does, you know, if we're looking to zone for more units in an area that they are wanting us to zone for more units, this gets us more units as allowed per the zone district than RL would. Just another thing to consider. I don't know if it changes anything for you, but that.
Now, that just seems to me like we're hedging our bets. It's either let's go multifamily and make sure these lots can only be developed for 4 units per lot, or let's not do that and make them single family. Because, you know, if we go medium density and the builder says, hey, I'm only going to do single family, but he doesn't do anything, he sits on it, he sells it, the next person coming in, we need to make a decision. Because too often I think as a council or a previous board, we hum and haw around an issue and we don't make the difficult decisions that we have to make as a council. Yeah, we do need affordable housing. And, you know, like I said to your predecessor, we don't need 80% AMI, we need 30% AMI, and that is never going to happen here. So we have to make a decision on which way this is going to go. And for me, I just don't think that making it medium density is making any sense at all.
I support the request as it stands. All the same things that Councilmember Miller said. We are moving in a direction through comprehensive plan and housing strategy that all lines up with this. The property directly behind it, which is adjacent, is medium density. So I would support the request that the owner has. Yeah.
Jeffrey, Renee, just a question on the minimum parking requirements. I thought we adopted or we were told to adopt new, basically elimination of parking minimums. How does this sort of reconcile with what we have just recently adopted?
So that's for new developments in the TOD area that are not developed, and from, I don't have the code in front of me that we adopted, but I think it's for multifamily. So if they went, it's not.
So RM would fall into that bucket then, wouldn't it? Because
If they were developing more units.
But this
So
isn't the TOD, the half mile around the TOD.
It's not so it wouldn't be the parking would be based on what the proposed development is, not what it's zoned for. So if they're proposing a single unit, then the parking minimums would have to be met. But if they're proposing multi-unit development, then those parking minimums would change. I can look up that code that we adopted.
The good thing here is we got a second reading, because I would like to understand those parking requirements, because if not for this applicant, a future applicant, a rezone of a parcel, how do we sort of contemplate new parking requirements or restrictions with rezones? Because there's going to be more of them over time.
So that when we adopted that, and then I'll have Renee check the map too. I'm less sure about the map. What the code says is that for new multifamily development, so like Renee said, for development that's actively planned, you can't require parking, but it's only within a radius of the 36 stop. And so there's different radii with all of these bills. So this might not be in that one, which maybe doesn't
I know, because there's a quarter mile radius and there's a half mile radius. This falls into the half mile radius, but not the quarter mile radius. And that's where, I want to make sure it's like, let's say we approve the application. It's now zoned multifamily. Arguably, there are no parking restrictions or requirements because it is within the half mile of the TOD.
This is the parking is the 1/4 mile.
Okay.
Which I just Googled, so I will check on that. But, and also I don't know, as the crow flies in Superior. I know you guys pretty well, but I don't know you that well.
Yeah, it
doesn't seem like it's a quarter mile.
It's about 1,500 feet. So
is it really that close?
It is really that close. Because again, the bus stop is very wide. So, it's what part of the bus stop are we grabbing the corner of? And it's not the bus stop, it's the land that RTD owns, which is the other piece of this that makes it very weird, because RTD owns the entire parking lot. So it's actually probably within the quarter mile radius because of the parking lot that RTD owns. So again, this is more of an esoteric conversation, because where I'm headed is, we can eliminate parking minimums, but people pretty much still need transportation. And, to Jason's point, this doesn't help that corridor, because we already have a lot of complaints about, traffic on Coal Creek Drive. A lot, yeah. All right. But no, again, since this is coming back in a couple weeks, it'd be good to understand kind of how.
That would certainly change things.
Well, food for thought too, and just if you can get me these numbers, I'd like to know, just comparatively, how many building permits have gone for ADU so far in Rock Creek since we allowed those?
In Rock Creek?
In Rock Creek.
Okay.
Because I'd like, because the reason I'm saying that, and I'm not trying to put part of Superior against one another, but I would like, the northern town seems like we're becoming oversaturated with multifamily units. Downtown is pretty much the ideal perspective for this, right? And the whole idea, going back to when it first got started, if we were going to do affordable housing, it should have been in downtown. It'd been the best spot for it, because the complete area is multifamily. It's high density, very high density over there. And we're going into a residential neighborhood, which doesn't affect me. It really, I've always been, like I said, I've been for affordable housing at 30%, which we are never going to get. But if we're going to do this, it just doesn't strike me that this is the biggest effort. It seems like it's just this tiny little, okay, we're going to do 6 lots and we're going to make it so it can be zoned one way or the other. Parking could become an issue. We've got other areas that we need to start focusing on, higher density, especially affordable housing. This just doesn't seem like it's taking care of much. It's kind of like a tiny little, and that's it. it doesn't really get us anywhere towards our goal. And, you know, if the developer says he's going to do single family, well, let's make it single family then. Because if he's asking to do single family, but he wants multifamily on it, it doesn't make sense to me what the ask is.
I hear what you're saying. If it's not out of line, I was just going to give you a scenario that I keep thinking about.
Please.
That I think is somewhat realistic. There's someone I've already heard who wants to buy 2 lots and have one of them as a yard. It's already done in several lots down in original town. And I can just foresee a time in the future where maybe something like, the 2008 crash happens again and land values are lower and people are scrambling and someone feels like they could use the lot next to them to help them survive and say, well, great, I have my house on my lot and that lot that I was using for a yard, now it could be a duplex and that will get me over. I just think, why bar that future scenario from ever happening? I mean, I don't know. It's good scenario planning to me to have more options.
Yeah, but that's hyperbole, Jeffrey, because you're looking at a situation where we're talking about the 6 lots that a developer is going to buy, who plans on developing each one for single family or not. Once they buy it, they can sit on that for 5 years and do nothing. They can develop them right away for single family. They can develop them right away for multifamily. There's no guarantee the direction of it's going to go. And if things do change, it doesn't necessarily whatever use he's going to put on that's going to make sense for whatever crash is going to happen. Or
It may not.
We're looking at situations that make no bearing whatsoever on the constructability of these lots. I'm just concerned about, when you take the surrounding neighborhood and you go, even the ones behind it, I do realize what the zoning is for that, and those are all single family. Across the street on William at 5th, we've got a couple duplexes there. But towards the park, it seems to me, and this is from a development-minded sense, those are all very premium lots that you would put a single family home on directly across from a park. And if he says he wants to put single-family homes on it, then why are we talking multifamily homes? Why doesn't he just come with the application of having single-family homes? I just want to make sure that we're all on board, that the promises made here are going to be the promises kept going forward, that there aren't going to be any changes. And if this individual decides he wants to sell the lots, they're already designated a certain way rather than the next person coming in can do whatever they want on it.
I would love to hear what people who haven't commented have to say about this.
Oh, and people can speak up. I don't mean to take up the entire time.
I honestly was torn on this because I can see both sides of it, as I think everyone can, but I'm tending to lean towards, my big question at the very beginning was why not low-density residential? So I think, thank you to Elizabeth for sharing that they didn't want to take 2 steps back and continue forward with their application. I'm curious about the transportation models and kind of how that factors into this, because I do think I do have a concern about parking on that corner, and the basically that corridor between there and the marketplace. So I'd be curious to see how that goes. I find this very interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to more of it, to be honest, because I'm on the fence right now.
Yeah. At this point in time, I think I'm leaning more towards low density. Just as I take a step back and I think about where there could be more affordable housing or attainable housing development, I continue to go back to the marketplace and looking at what they're doing in Broomfield, right next to the town of Superior, and modeling something like that. But I realize that we need to get Brixmor to the table to have that conversation. So at this point, I'm curious why, if it sounds like there could be something in the hopper for single family, why the applicant went with the higher density. So I'm glad that this is the first reading, and if the applicant's open to revising the request, and this comes back on the 9th of June, that would be great.
I just wanted to comment really quick that Renee just shared with me the map for the HB 24-1304 minimum parking requirements, and the bubble falls short of Coal Creek Drive, so this would not be included.
Great, thank you for that.
Real-time response. Thank you.
A question I have, just as maybe a theoretical exercise. So since the 3 blocks south of this are all residential medium, so it almost feels in my OCD mind like if this was low density, it's more disjointed than medium density. So for the 3 blocks south of that are currently zoned as residential medium, do we have safeguards in place if they ever wanted to, a developer wanted to come in and take any of those lots and build something larger? Or, so we'd have the same issue essentially with those 3 blocks as we would have this one? Or no, because there's
They would
stuff
be
on it?
they would be able to do that according to the zoning, as as long as the zoning is the safeguard.
Okay.
But if I understand Councilmember Miller's question correctly, a developer would need to buy multiple lots in order to make that change. No, they could.
No,
They could
just
put it-
one. And there are two spaces, I think, where there are 3 adjacent to each other, or maybe just one on the next block, that there are 3 adjacent to each other. They could take those right now, but they don't.
But if I heard you correctly earlier, Jeffrey, if a developer were to put a 6-plex on one of those lots, there would still be parking requirements would have to be met and a whole host of other things, and that would
It
be.
may be physically impossible.
It would be physically impossible, so
It
just.
may be infeasible, which is what Vince Colson told us, is that it's just beyond infeasible. He wouldn't even have, he was trying to just do a duplex, and he was like, forget it, can't be done.
Okay, so the sort of the geometry of the lot size would prohibit.
Yeah, and just the
More
value of
dense
it,
development.
you would make more doing the other thing, so why would you?
Like, for me, just because it feels like everything in that section is all residential medium, I'm not a proponent by any stretch of the imagination of putting something large or doing some sort of, huge multifamily. But I do like the idea of allowing duplexes like everything south of it and giving those people the choice to have a duplex as an additional form of housing, simply because I don't think it's feasible to do anything beyond that. But I'd be curious if there's anything that I'm not thinking of that could have something larger, because I would not be okay with that. But I 100% would be okay with a duplex. I just want to make sure that there's not something creative that happens that would end up with like an apartment complex type of situation, or like a 4-plex, 5-plex, 6-plex type of situation.
So basically, like, the zoning doesn't change and the zoning requirements don't change. And even if they combined lots, you can only do 6 units per lot. So you don't get more units with a bigger lot, you get less units with a bigger lot. And you still have to meet these requirements. And as soon as you go to a multi-unit, you have greater setbacks, so you have less buildable area with the same other constrictions, like the height and the lot coverage and things like that. So, as the zoning, these guidelines, the RM, development standards are what guide what can be done on a lot and what can't be done on a lot. So, getting creative maybe, but you would still have to meet these requirements. So the building would still look the same. There would just be more units within it.
Okay.
Like, I think that you could do, you could foresee like townhomes, maybe so they'd be attached instead of detached, if that's what you mean by giant apartment complex. But it wouldn't be giant in the sense that it would be more stories and wider and longer. It would just be the same amount of units on a lot.
Okay, because I guess my main concern beyond it being a monstrosity, so I'm glad to hear that that's not feasible, would just be packing too many people into that area because of traffic and everything else, and I don't want to have it be a disruption to the neighborhood and the existing residents. I don't think a duplex would, but I think anything beyond that would, and so that would be my concern. So I just want to know that that's probably not a reality.
Yeah, again, we did not hear that concern from Public Works with the zoning, that this would significantly raise the average daily travel on that street, which I yeah, I believe is, not super high for a residential area right now.
And then one more theoretical kind of worst case scenario, because I love thinking worst case scenario. So since the state tends to just come up with some ideas that we then have to follow. So the minimum parking I know is not something we need to be concerned about as of right now because it doesn't fall within that radius, but say they expand that radius, what does that do from what they can build? Like say the minimum parking goes away and that's no longer a thing. Can they then do more?
The TOC bill might extend into this area and, it wouldn't impact this area necessarily, but it would require in that bubble, as you probably already have been told, it would require a lot more density. So.
And we would have to follow that.
They would like us to.
Will we still have our height restrictions and we would still have all the setbacks and everything and they can't mess with that theoretically?
They can change anything they want.
The state can do what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of cut off, I don't mean to cut off them either, but I mean, when you start to go down the sort of hypotheticals that don't require kind of end steps, right now, I guess like the biggest one would be that the minimum parking goes from a quarter mile to a half mile.
Okay.
Right, because there are other bills that go from a quarter mile to a half mile. And again, like without getting like my protractor out, that probably extends into that because it's pretty dang close. But further than that, it's going to kind of take a couple layers of state bills to change what is going on in this lot right now and what we are currently doing as a town.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be a little hesitant to not think that things can be done on this lot. For example, in Denver right now, they've taken 50-foot, Denver city lots are typical to our lots in this part of town, 50 by 140. They cut them in half in urban infill. So you've got a 25 by 140, and they're able to get duplexes on those. So now you're talking about a quadplex on a 50-foot lot, which is a possibility. And the idea of a townhouse, you could easily do a townhouse per lot with garage loading, emptying to the alley. Now you're talking about 4 units with 2 cars each, 8 cars per lot emptying to an alley, trying to get out either on 5th, which isn't paved, more likely on 4th using that intersection. It just strikes me that whenever we try to say, well, this can't happen, that won't happen, there's a lot of possibilities through design that you can easily make this happen without saying there's no way you can get a quadplex on there. And I'm not, going down, I can easily get a quadplex on there.
Not that fits that, though. Not that fits the 40% lot coverage, the 6, like all of that creates a limitation.
Yep. You can do it.
Were you talking building like a quadplex of lofts? Like
you're talking, you can dig down your basement
that's not
level.
financially beneficial to whoever's building it at that point.
But it's possible. Is what I'm saying. What I'm throwing is worst. It's not something that's worst case scenario. But you can easily put 2. You can put 2 apartments in a basement.
I get it. You
right?
Can.
Yeah, you can.
But what advantage would anyone have to do that?
Lease money.
Not if they're not going to be able to. If they're a 400 square foot apartment. That's not a benefit. Like, no one's going to pay that much money to cover the cost of building that.
But
to rent it.
At what point does it become economical for the developer to do that? And also the other thing that I'm thinking about, Jen, is also what is our tax footprint on this? If they do duplexes on there, what can we look at per our tax revenue versus somebody doing a single family $2 million home on that? Are we much more benefited by having a higher tax base of these homes creating a larger tax footprint than a smaller tax footprint? Because we've got a lot of chickens that are going to be coming home to roost eventually on this town, and we have to make sure that we're in a very good position for this.
In real estate, typically if you have 2 property, like the duplex, like a lot of times that number is close to the same number, whether it's one single family residence or the 2 properties. So I don't, like the tax base isn't going to change a ton on when it stays in a container of whatever these limitations are. So
I'm going to argue with you on this. Given the proximity to the park, it seems like each one of these 50 by 140s, you can easily put a luxury home in it. People talk about gentrification, and they have a problem with it. I think one of the best things that's going to happen to this area is gentrification, because we are going to benefit from it from a tax standpoint to a much, much greater degree than if we go multifamily on these lots. Because if you do a duplex, how high-end level finish are you going to do that? Are you going to do each duplex where it's going to be pushing $2 million, or are you going to do one house that's going to be pushing $2 million?
nobody's going to do, like if the intent is to rent them, then it's going to be whatever the minimum cost is for the builder.
I think
like that's not going to be what they do. we could do this all day. I just want to make the point of, we don't have to look at whether this is formally affordable at some point or just another option for middle housing. I think that you brought up earlier about this being like small and not what, potentially beneficial. But I think because we don't have a lot to work with, it's going to be these small parcels that give us those creative options. And I would just like people to consider that if we keep looking for this like mega affordable housing, like we're not going to get there. But this is the kind of thing that you can step your way into. Okay, maybe if there's duplexes on each one of them, then there's 6 homes that don't impact traffic, that don't have a heavy influence on changing the culture of the community that it is, and have restrictions enough so that they're not building up or out in a way that is uncomfortable for the people that are there. This is a way to give the opportunity to have double what could be there if it stays at the lower residential level. And that shows that we actually are taking this seriously about housing in our community, and all the stuff that we're doing for the comprehensive plan and the housing surveys is not just lip service. And so I want to stay away from the idea that we have some big gem of affordable housing that's going to come up somewhere. It's not. It's going to be these little infills that happen throughout our community and ADUs. And we've talked about that a lot, how to help people transition into making what is housing that is existing into something versus like a huge build out. And I think that's the right direction for giving people the option to go single family, or in this case, I feel super comfortable with the restrictions of the density and the lots, that you're not going to have a fourplex on there. So,
Jeff, could you go back to the map that showed the different zonings? This one, okay. Rogers Farm, that's medium density. Rogers Farm was supposed to be the middle housing affordability at $400,000, and almost overnight it was $600,000, and now it's $700,000. You are not going to get anywhere, even with a multifamily unit in this part of town, that I think is going to go for anywhere even close to an affordable price, because this, and I've been saying this for a number of years since the fire, this is the new Cherry Creek. This is going to be where the true gentrification goes, that every time a lot is available, there's going to be a $2 million plus home going on it. That's the area for this. So I don't see middle housing coming here at all. I do understand your point, because you and I have had an agreement on affordable and the desperate need that we have to have for that in this area, because we don't have anywhere for our cooks and our teachers and our police officers and our nurses to be able to live to serve our community. And it would be fantastic if we could do that. This just doesn't strike me as the area for that.
Well, I'd say even beyond affordable housing, though, we have a lack of housing for our senior population, and not everybody's going to need affordable housing as a senior, but they do want something that doesn't have a ton of stairs. It's not vertical. It's not a massive house they have to take care of with a huge yard. Mm-hmm. This to me feels like an area that medium density to me, if you're older or you just don't want as much to take care of, it would be nice to have an option where we have some duplexes, because outside of south of this, where we have the lanterns, and I'm struggling to think of other duplexes we have in town. So it would be nice to have an area where maybe there's a few more, where there's another option for people who don't want vertical and they don't want giant and a lot to take care of.
I totally agree with you. And that was one of the things that I ran on, was 55 up in housing, and the way that people want to be able to leave their 6,000 square foot homes. But now you're talking about ranch plans, and ranch plans are very land expansive. They
Not
can't
necessarily. I mean, you look at the lanterns and it's predominantly ranch, but then it goes
those lots are big.
Under, and I mean, they're not very big.
You would say there are probably about 3 lots on that. I mean, they are larger. You have to spread out wider when you go with the ranch plan. That's just, there's no way around it, because you don't have any verticality to it. But anyway, Jeffrey, you've been extremely patient. Should we maybe invite public comment so we can kind of get some perspective from the people? Is there anybody in the boardroom or council room who would like to give public comment? Just write your name on the sheet and address, and then come up and state your name. I'm blowing formality tonight anyway, so let's.
I'm Ross Morgan, 305 West Coal Creek Drive, and I'm pleasantly surprised to see some of the questions you guys are asking tonight. I wrote a letter opposing this, and I attended the Planning Commission meeting. And since that time, when they voted against the wishes of those of us who were opposing it, and there were quite a few from Original Town who really think that it's inappropriate to have multifamily on the edge of Original Town. I read the memo that was written for tonight's meeting, and it was quite a bit more complete in terms of quoting the code, and I almost felt like it was a rebuttal to those of us who had spoken up against this. I couldn't help but feel like it was a little bit condescending to us. We're not stupid, you know, we can read the code too. And in many areas of the code that apply to this, I think it's a matter of interpretation. So I'm glad you're asking these questions about why doesn't the future owner of this property come forward with a proposal, or why doesn't why don't the Kuffners revise it to a request for single family? Our land use code allows for a minimum of 400 square feet per dwelling unit. So at 6 units per lot, that would be 2,400. If you start allowing for some hallways, you might have a 3,000 square foot building. On a 2-story building, that would be a 1,500 square foot footprint on a 7,000 square foot lot. So seems to me there might be room for some parking there. So we could potentially end up with 36 units in that vicinity there. And I mean, I just think it's totally inappropriate to zone this multifamily, and that's enough said. I hope you'll consider what I've had to say. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the council room wishing to make public comment? I have to say it. Emily, is there anyone on Zoom?
There is no one on Zoom.
Okay.
I tried for an hour to get on Zoom. I couldn't make it work because I've been working on all 30.
I apologize for that, Mr. Morgan. Yeah.
Again, first reading.
Okay, yeah, first reading, closed public comment. Any more thoughts on this tonight?
Just a couple closing thoughts. I mean, hopefully you guys got some good feedback for kind of the questions we want answered for the second reading. How does this thing get noticed for the second reading? Do we do the same blast out for, or is it just the one blast that we did for the land use decision for the neighborhood?
We re-noticed, the mailers went back out, so the first reading for tonight and the second reading for the 9th. So that was sent to the 1,000 feet.
Radius.
Not square feet.
That's this room right here, yeah.
Yeah. And then the agenda and everything gets posted and noticed through social media and online and everything else, just like it always does.
Okay, all right. So everybody who maybe tried to get into the Zoom today, failed, they're going to get noticed that the second reading is going to be held here in the boardroom, and we'll make sure the technical side of it works. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Can I ask a general question for
absolutely.
staff, just because I never had the benefit of being on planning commission, so this is probably an ignorant question, but maybe you can educate me. Is there either in our zoning or building code or something we can put in place, and not just for this group of lots, but also kind of south of it, just to have more control over building that happens? Is there any sort of safeguards we can put in place that we say, you know, we're okay with duplexes, but nothing more? Like, how would we accomplish that? Or is there not a way to do that? Like, almost like instead of residential low, residential medium, like, you know, in sizing of shirts, there's like a schmedium where it's, you know, you can, a schmedium, where you could do like, this is okay for single family or duplexes, nothing more. Is there a way to accomplish that just in general?
Okay. Matt, Emily, Matt's recognized.
Thanks. Yeah, we can amend the code. We would amend the land use code if that's the direction that the council wanted to go. We would amend the requirements under the RM zoning to, limit it to just duplexes or however we decide to go down. But that would have to go to the planning commission and then come back to the council for consideration.
Okay, because not even just for these lots, but I do have a concern with, the lot south, lots elsewhere in town. If we give residential medium to certain areas of town, and then it seems to me outside of obviously, setbacks and height, we kind of lose control over being able to stop something if a developer does want to come in and develop things. So I'm just wondering if we can develop some safeguards around that so we have a little bit more control over that.
We could amend the code to pick a certain number of units, or one after it becomes a, duplex, anything greater than that. You can amend the code to say whatever you want, and then no matter where that, like if you amended the RM zone district, then it would apply anytime that happened in the RM zone district. You could apply it to any zone district. We have, if it's zoned commercial in original town and you want to develop it, you have a site development plan process that comes to Planning Commission and you all for review before something is eligible for a building permit. But right now, homes in the residential zone districts, as long as they meet the requirements of the code, can go straight to building permit without coming to you all for a review. So it would be an amendment to the code to require a site development plan at fill in the blank time.
Okay. It's probably not appropriate to do now, and I'm sure Nick will yell at me, but if we can get that on the docket, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
We're a home rule municipality now, but what's going to safeguard us from the state coming with more bills that are going to be changing housing counts and what we can put on a lot? See? Yeah. Nothing's safe.
Right. We're all waiting to see what happens with the current case, right? And that'll, we'll see. Because this is a constant discussion at DRCOG, because most communities at DRCOG are home rule. And when this came through the state last year, it was a number one concern. It's still a number one concern. Greenwood Village is leading this. Lafayette's jumped on, Arvada, a bunch of other communities, and we'll see what it does in the courts. It could go either way. There's legal arguments on both sides. So, and I think, Stephanie, to your point, one of the things that we always got to be careful of is if an application's in, then the current code for development sticks. Yeah. Which protects everybody, right?
Yeah. That's Peter, current code. Does anyone else have anything? Let's reopen public comment. Please, Ms. Morgan. You're only one tonight, so you get.
I won't be long. I just wanted to mention that, especially after this last planning commission meeting, when they had such a dichotomous discussion, nitpicking over parts of the code and so forth that some of them didn't even understand, and then voted to recommend for this. In talking with my neighbors in original town, the reason that more people aren't down here is because there's a general feeling, although I'm sure that there are quite a few that have tried to log into Zoom tonight, that people had told me that they would. But there's a general feeling that the Planning Commission and the board are going to do whatever they want to, regardless of what the people in original town think, and that the desire of the board is to increase the density in general, and I don't think that's true, but that's a prevailing feeling out there, and I hope it's not true.
Thank you for your comment. Emily, is there anyone on Zoom? Hopefully, no.
We have no one on Zoom.
Really? What? Excellent. Please recognize that person.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have no one on Zoom.
Teasing me.
Can I just say, like, it's weird that no one's on Zoom, and so I just want to make sure for people watching this later that if you were trying to log in, we do want to hear what you have to say. So please email us, reach out however it is appropriate, but that is very unintended, and I just want to acknowledge that. I know that when you're on the other side of the dais and you can't get in, it feels very much like on purpose, and that is not what's happening. And so I want to make sure people know that we want to hear what you have to say. So, thanks.
I think maybe it's just the backup quarterbacks in and nobody, nobody's going to watch the game. It's Tuesday. I was too, yeah. But hopefully realistically, hopefully we can get robust conversation from the community, because I really would like to hear from the residents that live in the area, pros and cons. This affects your life, the way you live, so it's very important to us that the community members come out. So if this happens again, please have them come in person. You have your time here at the beginning, and because it's a public meeting, you also have your time later on when we talk about it. So please, invite your neighbors to come. We definitely care about what you guys think. We work for you guys. You're our community. So I think the Zoom, like Jen says, probably a fluke tonight. There's probably some technical thing, but we want to hear from you. So with that, we'll close public comment. Matt Magley on Zoom.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not aware of anything wrong with Zoom.
Tuesday night.
So, I haven't heard of anything being wrong on Zoom. We'll double check, but to my knowledge, there's nothing wrong with Zoom as far as people being able to log in.
I tried to get on the public Zoom. Sorry, Matt. I tried to get on the public Zoom and I did get an invalid ID login.
That's what I get too. Okay. All right.
But we will have a second
That's what I'm
hearing.
getting.
Yeah, we'll continue this on June 9th. So does anybody have anything else they want to add to this? Okay, so it's going to stay open, so I'm not going to close this, but if we don't have anything further, we're going to end at 8:15 this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Lydia, thank you. Matt, Magley, thank you. Nick, thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
How fast a meeting ran.
Yeah, see?